even though AI can do so much and save so much time, learning it and figuring it out and getting it into a place is not as simple as it. And I have a coach that's helping me figure out how to get through all of this AI stuff, what's important, what's not. The real estate transaction is very similar. There are so many different people involved. I mean, from the disclosures, the septic, sewer, well, I can go on and on about all the different things. It's a hard, really complicated transaction. And with the right person that's experienced and knows what they're doing, AI will never be able to replace them.
Yo, welcome to another episode of the Founder Podcast. Today, I am joined by Krista Mashore. She is a real estate and internet marketing guru. She speaks all over. She's written over 6 books, done 57 million in internet marketing coaching because previously she was in the real estate industry, top 1%, sold over 2,300 homes. She goes and she teaches realtors how to go and scale through using internet marketing. Today, I'm super excited to have Krista because there's some hot topics in the real estate world going on right now. So recently, the National Association of Realtors, they passed, they basically levied a big old fine against the real estate, they had a fine levied against them for, it was like 450 million. Is that right?
Yeah, close to it.
Crazy. And so, traditionally there's been a 6% fee for real estate agents. It's posted on the MLS. So it's kind of like, if a certain one is getting a little bit more, if you go and buy it, I've read several articles on it, and I'm a big real estate investor myself. So that's kind of getting thrown out the window where there's like less transparency on what the fees are going to be and more on a negotiation table. So tell us a little bit about that and like, how's that going to change the game?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. Okay, so first of all, I can't really talk like commissions because of antitrust, right? So, especially amongst realtors, if I was ever to say, oh, the standard or customary or norm is XYZ, that's considered antitrust and I'd get in big trouble. So I'm going to try to stay away from like percentages and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So basically what happened was, so this is what's crazy. So back in the 1990s, right, the buyer-broker agreement got into play because they were trying to, like, consumer protection advocates were trying to protect consumers. So because of that, they had this buyer-broker compensation form agreement in place. Okay, so it was there to protect. Now, 30 years or 20 years later, whatever it is, 30 years later, now they're saying the opposite. And so now there's this huge disruption. Everybody's freaking out. It's not even really that big of a deal at all, but everyone's making it seem like it is. And of course, because of the news media saying things like brokers' commissions slayed across the country and, millions of agents are going to lose their jobs. And it's just like, it's a bloodbath right now. Like to put it into perspective, I was just telling you, I just did a video that was 2 minutes long about 36 hours ago. We've already had like 1,500 hours of watch time on this 2-minute video in 36 hours. So people are going crazy. So basically, the National Association of Realtors was sued. There was an agreement that was reached that still needs to go through court, but it looks pretty much like it's going to happen. And here's what the good news about the settlement was that they agreed to have most all of their members safe from future liability or litigation, so that they're basically taking all the brunt. So that's a good thing, right? And it's good that they're doing that because the National Association of Realtors is actually the largest trade association in the United States.
Wow.
So obviously you'd think they want to make us happy, but all the realtors are mad saying they didn't fight for us and blah, 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 which is just not true because they want to make us happy because if we go away, they go away, right?
Right.
So the settlement says, hey, realtors are safe. The second thing it said was that the way that the buyer's agency commission is paid can no longer be on the MLS. So historically, let's just say there was a certain amount of compensation paid. Oftentimes that compensation that the selling agent, the listing agent got, they would split with the buyer's agent.
Right.
And on the multiple listing service, which is where you look for properties, it would say, hey, this is the commission that's being paid to the buyer's agent.
Right.
That is no longer allowed. Okay. And now the new rule is before you go into any kind of dealings with the buyer, you have to have an agreement in place between the buyer's agent and the buyer saying what the commission will be. The buyer is going to be responsible for paying that commission regardless as to whether or not the seller is paying it. Does that make sense? So now it's like, so the sellers are thinking, I don't have to pay as much commission, and which is not true. I mean, somebody's going to have to pay it, right?
Right.
32% last year of our buyers were first-time home buyers.
Wow.
So what that means is like, and they have no money. They're already broke and poor and scrambling by. So they're not going to be able to afford this added fee. They're already paying for inspections and escrow and title and prepaid taxes and fees. And like they come to closing with $20,000, $30,000 sometimes. To have to come up with an extra additional amount is going to really be difficult. So everyone's saying that it's going to go away. Somebody still has to pay it. And just like you don't work for free and I don't work for free, neither are the buyer's agents.
Right.
And also over 400,000 of the loans last year were veterans. Okay. Veterans are not allowed to pay any percentage of the commission, which means that takes all the veterans out. The people that are trying to serve our country and protect us and serve us, we're saying, oh, too bad you can't buy a house now, is what this is doing. So my point is that just like anything else, there's going to be plenty of things that come into play. We're all going to be safe. We're going to be protected. Everyone just has to modify and adjust and things will be fine. This hurts. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what's your projection? Like, what do you think will end up playing out? You think there's just going to be a modified, you have your traditional percentage. I know you said you can't speak to the amount, but you have your traditional percentage. Do you see that being cut down by like 25, 50%? I know there's a lot of projections, a lot of news articles and stuff out there that's what they're expecting. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so, because I'll tell you what, I work with other coaches and experts, and real estate is one of the hardest jobs out there. Everybody says that it's like, oh, real estate agents aren't needed. The amount of people that they deal with in any given transaction, not to mention the heightened, the heightened emotions from these parties is unbelievable. It's a very, very, very complicated process. In fact, 2 years in a row, when somebody sold for sale by owner, they on average lost $95,000 just by selling the house on their own nationally. Also, the median price when a for sale by owner is sold on their own, the median price dropped by $95,000.
Right.
So because it's so complex and they don't know what they don't know, what questions to ask, what to foresee, what to forecast, I don't think that's going to happen. It's just going to be a different conversation. And the conversation looks like this. Hey, you're still allowed to pay the buyer commission, Mr. Seller, right? You're still allowed to pay a percentage. And what you have to understand is that buyer's agents need to get paid. Whether they're getting paid from you or the buyer, they still have to get paid, and the buyer's going to have to pay them.
Yeah.
If the buyer has to pay the commission and you're not willing to, the pool of people that are going to be looking at your home is going to probably most likely drastically go down, which means your home's going to stay on the market longer. The home will probably lose money if you can even sell it at all, because between 96 and 95%, 94 and 95% of homes are sold through other agents. So I'm like a listing specialist, a marketing specialist, but even though I'm a marketing specialist and know how to get, mass exposure for my properties, still most of my properties are sold by other agents. Mm-hmm. They're sold by people that are representing the buyer, right? So it's just, they're making something out of nothing, quite frankly. It is different. And who's making it even worse are the realtors, because they're so not used to change and they're just like,
Yeah.
They are massively panicking, and it's because most of them should. Most agents have not been taught how to market, how to differentiate themselves, how to have a unique value add. They're just doing the same old things like putting it on MLS, putting up a sign, and whammo, you got to pay me a big fat commission, which most of them are paid too much because of what they are or not doing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here. So obviously you spoke to a little bit, because like you said, there's a lot of people out there like, oh, are realtors needed? Will they be around in the next 5 or 10 years? And so to that, I would say, obviously there's a lot of emotional negotiation and people that realtors deal with. But my devil's advocate side is like, can't AI do a lot of those type of things? Like be able to, take care of like it in my book. Like if I was going to argue against the real estate world, and And I'm not trying to.
I love it. Let's do
Yeah.
it because I want to know what kind of things people are saying and thinking. It's great for
Right.
me, you know?
If I was going to argue against the real estate world, I'd say one, AI is going to replace a lot of the type of transaction work, especially title. Like, I don't understand title agents. Like that to me is the most overpaid, least amount of value work that's done in a real estate transaction. You tell me. Like, can't that be replaced by AI?
Something like that may probably will be eventually, right? Like title and escrow. So the thing about title and escrow is it could be called something different, but they're like a neutral third party. They're the ones that they don't represent the seller or the buyer or either of the agents. They're there to make sure that all the funds come in, what the bank wants, the bank gets, and they're there to make sure that what the contract sets actually happens in the escrow from everybody before close of escrow.
Right.
They're dealing with the lender, they're dealing with the banks and all that. But the title search to make sure that the home can actually be sold, I agree with you. It's like, really? You have to, everyone does it because you're told you have to, but I would assume that most likely eventually AI will be able to replace things like that.
And the reason I bring up title or even escrow or whatnot, because frankly, the most value I get out of my real estate agent is dealing with those people, like dealing with the people that are involved in the transaction. As far as it's pretty easy nowadays to go and find a piece of property, right? Like I can look it up on Zillow. I can take a tour without ever, being with an agent. I can see the neighborhood, know the quality of schools, like all those things, but like dealing with the people involved in the negotiation. So I just really love to understand your take, but I think there will always be an aspect. I'm a big salesperson, right? Like I understand the value of salespeople and relationship management, but frankly, in sales, I also look at can AI replace this? Because there's these new AI voice robots that are fantastic that can be programmed with all the relationship things. It's I don't know, is this the end of sales? Is this the end of marketing?
Well, it's crazy though what they're doing with sales, like setters and all these things to call people. It's really trippy. I don't know. I have like an AI coach right now, so I'm heavily into AI, and I think you get out of AI as much as you put into it, right? And there's so much that everyone thinks it's just Chat GPT. It's so much more than that artificial intelligence can do.
Oh yeah.
The biggest problem I'm actually having with AI is getting everyone to actually adopt it as much. So I'm having to learn all this stuff to get my team to utilize all the different aspects and areas that I know that it can do, and then getting it all together and implementing it, right? But that's a very good example. Even though AI can do so much and save so much time, learning it and figuring it out and getting it into a place is not as simple as it. You can't just tell I teach me how to do this or figure it out, right? It's a lot. I need a coach right now. I have a coach that's helping me figure out how to, get through all of this AI stuff. What's important, what's not. The real estate transaction is very similar. There are so many different, in fact, I just wrote this article, people involved. From the disclosures, the, septic, sewer, well, home inspector, termite inspector, roof. I can go on and on about all the different things. There's these timelines, there's deposits, there's contingencies. I've sold 2,300 homes. I understand how much can go wrong. And I've unfortunately seen on the other side just what somebody as a for sale by owner or somebody hasn't sold a lot of homes, which in the most cases, most every agent, like the average agent sells, NAR says it's 12 a year. It's not. I did the math of how many homes sold, how many agents are there. It's like 1.6 or something like that. That's the average home that agents sell, because the top tier agents are selling 100 homes a year. The bottom ones are selling one, if that. So their average is 12, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's a hard, really complicated transaction. And with the right person that's experienced and knows what they're doing, AI will never be able to replace them. Yes, it's going to be able to replace some of the yes. Like, for example, there's an AI that's coming out right now that I just learned about it. That you can put your contract in there and you can tell it to kind of write things for you and do things for you, so it'll help, right? But you have to know what to tell it to write and tell it what to do. Sure. You have to be experienced, or it wouldn't matter that you can tell it to write me a counteroffer or do this or that. It's a very complex process, but unfortunately, because it's so easy to enter real estate. You take a couple hundred hours of, if that, of classes and whammo, you are now certified to take care of somebody's most financial, biggest investment of their life. And so because of that, it's a very underappreciated, and quite frankly, profession. And oftentimes people are right, because most agents do not know what they're doing. They don't take their time to get educated. They're just doing the same techniques that were taught 50 years ago. Their technology scares them to death. It's they have not been taught how to run a business or how to market whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with you that, people will not be replaced by AI. They will be replaced by people that know how to use AI. Right. And so, it's a necessary evil that we have to adopt, that is going to allow us for higher efficiency, regardless of what industry you're in. So, you had a long background in real estate, doing, you were top 1%, you sold, over 2,300 homes. Tell me about what made you different. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you were able to develop into that type of person.
Well, okay. So, not to get too back into my backstory, but I haven't lived at home since I was 13 years old.
Wow.
So there was some, great relationship with my mom and dad now. And it was actually great when I was younger too. I lived in two households. One was very loving, mom and dad. And then my mom was also abusive. And so when I turned 13, I started running away from home. And then I ended up getting sent to juvenile hall, and then to a group home for girls. And then I ended up going to a foster home. And then when I turned 18, the money ran out from the foster home. So they said I had to leave, and I had to basically just kind of fend for myself, kind of a thing. So I've always kind of been like a fighter, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more, what did you learn during those years that were foundational to your success?
I would say the biggest thing was you are who you associate with. And so when I first got into trouble, I was kind of hanging out with not the best people, and I was young. I was just trying to escape, basically. And then when I got into my foster home, I made the distinct choice to hang out with a good group of girls that I'm still friends with to this day. We've been friends for 43 years.
Wow.
So I chose a really great group of girls, and that was instrumental in who I am today, So really surrounding myself. And I believe that that's the same, like being in a mastermind, right? You join these masterminds to elevate I want to be the dumbest one in the room. I want to be around other people that are achieving amazing things. So, I'm putting myself in the rooms and asserting myself in front of people that are doing much greater things than I am. And that was kind of I started that when I was in high school, right? I found the right group of girls. I sort of put my eye on them, and then, became friends with them. So that's where it started. And then just realizing that I wanted more. I used to be a teacher. I wanted more than just to, be the foster kid. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have to wear the, Kmart clothes, and I wanted to be able to have nice things and, not, so I just worked hard for it. And I went to college and paid for student loans and worked full time during the day and went to school at night. Ended up getting a teaching degree, and met my first husband, who ended up cheating on me right after we had bought a house and draining our accounts. And so I had two little girls under the age of 4. And that was when I got into real estate. So what happened was my daughter got sick. And so I left teaching. We just bought in a new house. I left teaching to be a stay-at-home mom. And then very quickly, and I was just going to play real estate, so I could sell a couple homes a year so I could stay home and be with her and sort of make sure she got her milestones. Yeah. And very closely, right around that time, I found out my husband was having an affair again. And so I decided, to leave. And then I just sold, that was the year I sold 69 homes my first year. So desperation is one of the reasons, right? I think when you're really hungry, you'll do anything. And the second way I did it when I first got into the business was I was, again, how do I differentiate myself, right? So
69 homes, and this was probably before internet marketing really existed. Yeah. Tell us about how you were able to accomplish that. What were your processes, your methodologies? I mean, it was just straight hustle. What was it?
It was big time hustle, very much hustle. The phone ring, and I don't care where I was at, I'd jump up and go sell or show. But I remember looking in the industry saying, okay, who's doing well and how can I emulate them? And then also looking outside of the real estate industry and thinking what are these big other companies doing that I could model? And I learned really quickly to be innovative. So for example, back then, if you listed a house, people may have a black and white flyer on the sign. Well, I would do 4-page colored flyers, and I'd put a CD with like a little label on it with 50 pictures on the label, right? I advertised on Comcast. I got a loan and I started advertising on our local Comcast, which was television. I paid for like a videographer way back then, and I put the video on the movie theaters in my local movies. So I'd be one of the commercials that would come up, So I just did things, very different, put myself on the moving buses. And as I would sell, I would put 20% back into marketing every time. Like I just knew that I had to be known by everybody. And so I would always invest money back as an agent, and always like looking around at what are people not doing that I can be doing better, and what are they doing well that I can model but do better and different.
So what I'm hearing is some awesome things. So first and foremost, I just want to point out to the listeners that there are no original principles to success, right? Nobody comes up with an original principle. Anybody that is successful is modeling something that has been done before them, right? They are studying the lives, whether it's, people that lived hundreds of years ago in, ancient scripture or recent books that have been written or whatever it is, right? Like success models success. And the fact that you modeled it, like that's huge. I'm hearing risk taking. Many entrepreneurs and founders are scared of taking risk and like investing the dollars into marketing, right? A lot of people are happy with maintenance. Like, hey, I spent $1,000 last month on marketing. I'm going to spend $1,000. Like I know for a fact that gets me a certain ROI, but spending double that is a little bit scary. And so the fact that you had a methodology of constantly investing back 20% into your marketing, that was a ever larger number, right? As you had success and whatnot. And so, yeah, those are like really the things I'm extracting from your story. It's modeling, it's risk taking, it's investing, it's having a formula for what you're going to put into your marketing. Very, very awesome. I love hearing that.
It's funny though, like everyone says the same thing, right? But I think people, if you listen to people that are doing well, like you would say the same thing, probably very close to what I did, but most people just aren't willing to do it, right? They're not willing to put in the time that it takes for it to happen. I mean, talk about risk and scared. Like when I wanted to leave my real estate business to open up a coaching business, like everybody told me I was crazy. They were like, normal people do not leave. I think I was making around 1.8 million in GCI. Wow. That's gross commission. That's like income coming in, right? I was 47. And people were like, normal people don't leave at your age when you're doing so well and start something new. And it was hard. Like I was spending all the money from my real estate business, putting it into my coaching business, right? Like some months I was like, they were right. What did I do? Because it was so hard. And I was like getting my butt handed to me. And even now, like I've had the hardest like 6 months in my coaching business that I've had, I would say since the first year. It's just been like profitability has been harder, especially I'm in real estate, right? So there's high interest rates and, no inventory. And now it's like, it's really hard to sell, a $24,000 coaching program to realtors who haven't sold a house in a year or if at all.
Right.
So it's been tough, man. I'm constantly trying to, like, just like you said, always, okay, what can we do different? How can we modify? How can we get better? What can we tweak? What can we change? But it is a rough road. That saying, heavy is the heart that wears the crown. You don't understand it unless you are an entrepreneur. Like you truly are the entrepreneur and the business owner and the founder. Nobody gets like when you say, $1 million months. Listen, dummy, I didn't make $1 million. Like that was what I grossed, but I'm lucky this month if I made 100,000 or 200,000. There was months we made $1 million. We did months we made $500,000, but lately it's been like I'm writing some checks. It is hard as an entrepreneur. So people just don't understand.
So how do you mentally handle those type of situations? Because like you said, the road of an entrepreneur is ups is downs. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're going through something difficult, like right now, where the real estate market is not as hot as it was 2 or 3 years ago, where people are willing to invest $24,000, like what mentally is going through your mind? Like, what are like maybe some of the things that you tell yourself, like the self-talk, or like, how do you get through these type of situations?
Well, it's a lot of self-talk. So one of the books that I wrote, it's called Stop, Snap, and Switch. Train your brain to unleash your limitless life. It's my favorite book that I've written. It's not a book that I've made money on, so to speak, but it's like my passionate project because, when you've had anybody that's had any kind of trauma, we all have, I've had to really work on feeling good about myself, feeling worthy, feeling like I'm liked, it's been a struggle. I'm really good at it now, but I've had major counseling, EMDR, and it's a constant self-talk. So there's Brooke Castillo. She teaches this method very similar to what I teach, but I just learned about it. That's a little bit different than mine. So I have this strategy called Stop, Snap, and Switch.
Yeah.
Stop. So we have between 30 and 70,000 thoughts that happen in our heads every single day. And most of them are like things you don't even think about. Like, I'm grabbing this thing and I'm doing this. Like, those are all thoughts, right?
Right.
But a lot of the thoughts that we have, they're negative thoughts, and they're negative repeated thoughts that we have over and over again. And of these negative thoughts, research shows that most of those things never happen.
Right.
So when you have all this negative thought, like right now, let's just say I was telling you it happened right before we started this training, right? Like, I have one of my long-term coaches leaving because she has 2 babies now and she wants to be a stay-at-home mom. So that change is happening. It's hard to lose her. Just before we're getting on this call, I got a call from probably my second in command in marketing that she's leaving. And I was like, God, when it rains, it pours, everything happens for a reason. I'm just telling myself. So I could right now and you said, well, do you want to stop the call? And I go, no, it's just part of life. Right. So I could say, oh my God, this person's leaving. This means my company it's already been so hard. And this means that we're not going to sell anymore. And who's going to do our job? And just get on this rabbit hole, which would, those thoughts make me feel like, oh my God, I want to jump inside, my skin. I want to freeze and I want to do nothing. Right. So so I always say your thoughts create your actions, create your life. Well, truthfully, this is what Brooke Castillo teaches in her model. Your thoughts, they create that feeling. Okay. So I was missing the one part. The feeling is what actually it creates the action. Because if you feel great and inspired and encouraged, like nothing can stop you, you're going to do it no matter what. If you feel like it's hopeless, it's never going to work. Why am I doing this? Like, oh my God, this has been a hard year. It's never going to change. I'm not going to be likely to want to take proper action, right? So I stop and recognize it. And now how it make me feel, recognize that negative thought, switch the bracelet, restate the thought into something positive. So right now, this person's leaving. It's like, hey, they're amazing. I love them. But you know what? The company is having trouble right now, profitable. I've been saying we might need to get rid of some employees, and she just did it for me. Right. Now, although she's one of my key players, and she absolutely is. She's one of my key players. I know that, things happen and everything happens for a reason. So, and I could tell, honestly, she wasn't happy. I've been noticing that she's not as happy. So, it's not really that much of a surprise, but you get it. Like I have to train myself.
I love it.
Think a certain way.
Yeah. So, you mentioned Brooke Castillo. She's awesome. Obviously both of you guys have an incredible framework to be able to work through these type of situations. And if you guys haven't checked out Brooke's work, she does phenomenal. I actually had the opportunity to have Brooke up to my cabin for 4 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had a mastermind kind of in the heart of COVID. And I had some of the coolest people. You saying goodbye to somebody? Is that your daughter?
Yeah, it's my daughter. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Hi, daughter.
Love you, baby.
Very cool. So
that's cool. Who else did you have? That's so cool.
Man, it was the coolest. So it was just this real intimate mastermind at my cabin. I had Alex Hormozy, and
when was this?
In 2020. So
wow.
So I had Alex and Layla. I had Russell Brunson there, and I had Brooke. And Brooke taught us this framework out on my deck next to we were sitting out there, nice summer night. And it was awesome, just working through these different feelings that were, stemming from like even personal relationships. It was like one of the
Mhm.
coolest experiences of my life. And, just you sharing the framework, it's yeah, so cool. So, and
Yeah.
there's so many good frameworks out there. Really, it's all about just like stopping in the moment. I know Urban Meyer, he was the former coach of Ohio State. He teaches a similar framework. It's E plus R equals O, event plus response equals outcome. Yeah, and
Mhm.
part of it is like pushing pause. And so like in the moment, identifying like where is
Yeah.
this stimulating, coming from? What's the actual event? How can I respond in a way that's going to get the outcome that I desire? And so but yes, I think, this type of framework, ultimately, no matter what framework you're using, you have to use something like this to be able to interpret and ultimately control the outcomes that each one of us desire. So thank you for
Mhm.
sharing how
And
that's working in your current life.
I noticed it too, like with people like us, right? Successful people, we're willing to actually learn about something like that, you know, and do it and apply it. Like I was, it's funny because soft snap and switch is very similar to what she teaches. I didn't even know about her thing until recently, right?
Yeah.
But I like the feeling part of it. I was like, that actually makes sense. It's not just the thought, it's actually the feeling associated, because that feeling is what's creating the action, right?
Yes.
And number one, being willing to keep learning, but to apply. Like I was teaching my husband, and I was excited to teach him about somebody else's model, because since it's me, he's like, oh, he doesn't, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
he won't say that,
Right. But that's
and
so
he was
true.
like, oh my gosh, we were going through it yesterday. But most people, successful people, are willing to learn about the thing and input it and do it. And I will tell you that when people say like mindset's more important than skill set, it is. I know with just where our minds go. And I'm still so hard on myself, and I still, you know, worry about things, and I still say and do things I shouldn't do, but I can quickly bring myself out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
I can
sure.
quickly bring myself out of it. So yeah.
And so obviously come from the coaching and consulting industry. You've obviously had mentors and coaches from the past. Who would you say are like some of your biggest influences that have impacted the way that you do business?
It's funny. So Alex and Rosie, we were actually in Russell Brunson's mastermind together. So I knew Alex back when he was just starting to blow up, right? I
Right.
paid him 25 grand for a day to hang out with him for a day. I was in Russell's inner circle for 6 years. I was in his highest level mastermind for
Yeah.
2 of them, called Atlas,
Yeah.
$150,000 investment.
Yep.
So I wouldn't necessarily say it was a person as much as it has been. And I know people ask that, but I love Russell. He is amazing. I mean, he's a mentor, but he would say to do something. So I would say, yes, he's the person. You could see, my gosh, like you can see from my wall.
Right.
I definitely listen to, what he says to do, but it's being around all the people front that are inside, that I've been able to, like, Russell will say to do something, and then I was like, okay, but I have to figure it out. How do I build a funnel? How do I write a book? How do I do all these things, right? And then being around all the different people within the organization, going to masterminds like you've said, have just been instrumental. So I would probably have to say Russell has been the main person that I have followed. And being around people like Alex in an intimate setting, and doing things like that, and some other amazing, great marketers, meeting some amazing women along the way. I just hired Jason Fladlin. I have like 6 coaches right now. Oh my God, I'm like, what I did to myself, but I'm like, what is wrong with me? I just hired Daryl Eves to teach me YouTube. And then I've got an AI coach right now. And then I'm building my EXP organization coach right now, Jason Fladlin, for webinars. I know I'm missing somebody.
So
Anyway,
awesome.
I'm going
I think
crazy.
the key thing to extract here for the listeners is that, like, if you want to succeed, you have to model success, and the way you model success is you got to pay for it, either with time, energy, or money, right? And bringing in the coaches and the consultants, and this is similarly for me was a key to my turning point, really, in my success, is when I started investing real dollars into my own personal education. And that's being in the right room, being presented with the right material, having the right coaches, just constantly surrounding myself. And so like just you sharing that, like regardless of who they are or whatnot, the fact that you have like 6 coaches, like that's phenomenal. And I think speaks to the level of success that you've been able to obtain.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that. Not 6, maybe 2, but don't do 6. I'm like, but you know why? Because I was kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, like it's been harder. It's been harder to be profitable. I need new stuff to help me get through with what's going on. And, paying for it with time, everybody, is going to cost you way more money than just paying for it. Like by paying the person that's done the thing, helps you out, tells you the system and strategies, what to do, what not to do. You're going to spend so much more money the opposite way. I mean, I have not had to learn that the hard way, quite frankly, because I've always learned to invest. But I think it's one of the biggest reasons why people don't succeed, because they don't hire the help. It's the biggest.
Yep.
They don't have the accountability and support, right? And then number 2, they don't give things the time it takes, and they just give up too soon. I was reading recently, a billionaire said that one of his biggest pitfalls that he sees in people are that they give up too soon. He says if they just would have waited moments longer, their impact on the world on what they would have done would have just been like just for moments. And moments, it's not really moments, but you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of which, it sounds like, that's a great piece of advice. What advice would you give to someone that is thinking about giving up or not quite ready to take the jump? Like speak to somebody that's in that position, or, like I said, either giving up or just on the edge of making the leap. What advice would you give to them?
I was in a position where I wanted to the outcome of staying where I was at when I was a realtor, even though I was making great money, and the fear of staying where I was, it got to a point where that was more scary than going outside of and taking a risk, right?
For sure.
Fear is just something that you're afraid of, what the unknown of what hasn't happened yet. And if you take effective action, so hiring somebody that can help you get there, investing in that, just like you do when you go to college. And, doctors spend 13 years to become a doctor to make $260,000 on average a year, with 13 years and all this debt. Like, no good. Hire an expert who's done the thing. Trust yourself and give it the time it takes, right? And just by being around the people that are on the same path with you, it's unbelievable what can happen when they, there's no self-motivation for them. They just want to help. That's what most of us are missing. It's just, you just need the positive associations and the actual directions. And if you have that and you have the heart and you give it the time, it's going to be hard as hell. You're going to lose money. Sometimes it has to go down before it can go up, but just give it the time and it will. No one ever talks about that either, Chris. They're always like, oh, I made $1 million. Well, it cost me $1.1 million to make $1 million. No one ever says that.
Right. Especially in the ClickFunnels community. Everyone's up there receiving their rewards and losing money.
Yeah. So true.
Well, very good. Thank you so much. You've dropped some incredible bombs. Krista, where is a great place that our listeners can follow or get a hold of you?
If you just follow me on socials, it's KristaMashore.com. We've got, we have classes that we teach every month for real estate agents. We have classes we teach every month for experts, entrepreneurs, and consultants. So just look me up on socials and that will be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks
for having me, Chris. You're awesome. You're so cute, by the way.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Krista, for your time today. We had incredible knowledge dropped. Appreciate so much. Until next time.